Before we get started, I want to announce that our next Following the Fire book club book will be A Church Called Tove by Scott McKnight and Laura Barringer. The subtitle is Forming a Goodness Culture That Resists Abuses of Power and Promotes Healing. That will be episode 25, which comes out on August 11th. And we're really excited that our guest for that episode will actually be one of the authors herself, Laura Barringer. So grab yourself a copy, give it a read, and join us on August 11th. Now, on with the show.
And I have been searching.
Welcome to Following the Fire. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the wilderness. Just like Israel followed the pillar of fire and smoke, we want to take a new look at our beliefs and just follow him.
And like Israel, we get it wrong a lot, we get lost a lot, but we're doing our best to go where God leads us. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Steve.
Don't you know it's all I have? But even
Looking for a new faith community is going to be weird at first, but that's just part of the process, like it or not. Nathan decided to be an overachiever and visited 2 churches in one day and tells us all about his experiences. We also start off the episode with some long overdue shoutouts.
these battles that I thought you wanted me to win, but you only wanted love. And I had been
Okay, so I realized I feel like we need a shout out section every once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have some shout outs, and I have 25 episodes worth of pent up shout outs. So we can shorten it in post. So my beautiful, amazing, awesome wife Heather has been hiking the Pacific Crest Trail for most of the time we've been doing this podcast.
That's just crazy.
Which is insane. And the Pacific Crest Trail is an insane... Whoever came up with this, she's hiking from Mexico to Canada. And it's not like the easy way to Mexico and Canada. The crest part of the Pacific Crest Trail means that she hikes over all the mountains on the way from Mexico to Canada.
Really?
You know, it's the... I would have called it like the ridge, you know, like what's the high point of the Pacific Crest? And she's just walking along the top of those mountains.
Wow. That's a lot of mountains, man.
It's a lot of mountains, including
It's like all the mountains.
Mount Whitney, the highest in the not Alaska states.
The contiguous 48?
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that word. Too many syllables. I know how to spell it. So she has spent more than 100 days at the time of this recording hiking and living out of her backpack.
Oh, man.
Hard to even imagine.
Yeah.
She's hiked over 1,500 miles of official Pacific Crest Trail mileage, which doesn't count. Like every once in a while she'll like hike up a different mountain, or she hiked 18 miles into town, and then when she's in town, she walks to the post office and to the store. So she's all kinds of miles she's not getting credit for. So anyways, wherever you are right now, Heather, I'm inspired and amazed by what you're doing. It just sounds so awesome, and it's been awesome to follow along with what she's doing.
Yeah, it's impressive. Just not even from the time spent doing it, just good grief. It's a lot of money.
And just to brag a little bit more, like 1,500 miles is really far. That's like for me, that's an uncomfortable plane ride.
Yeah.
And she is like 55% of the way done.
Oh, wow.
So it's just an incredible undertaking, but she's about to pass into Oregon, which is her favorite place in the universe and the Pacific Northwest. So, just awesome stuff ahead. And I'm like work and then think about what she's doing, and I'm super jealous I don't know if I could. I mean, it's physically amazing and inspiring, but it just sounds so awesome. So,
well, you got to join her for a bit, right?
I got to join her for a taste, and just her normal life was like one of the hardest things I've ever done. She went easy on me for 2 days. And we hiked, the first day we hiked 7 miles, and the last day we hiked like 9 miles. And then the 2 middle days we hiked 20 miles, which is just what she does normally. And
it's like no big deal.
Barely walk after like I got back on the plane and flew back, and I could barely stand up when the plane landed.
Oh man. We
smelled really bad, and she's just used to it. But she's hitchhiking, and she's had crazy. We were hiking together, and she was like, she bent over because there was a snake. She was like, "Oh, I wonder what kind of snake that was." And the snake answered her by going. I was like, "You talk to snakes now?" Yeah, yeah. It's a nope rope. It's a get away from that snake. So, hey, you guys should hike the PCT. It's just I followed like everyone I could find on Instagram doing this because it's an amazing undertaking.
Yeah.
So
that's fantastic.
Very cool.
Shout out to Heather.
Shout out to Heather. My next shout out is I really love watching the listener data stream in from countries outside the U.S. And not everyone that listens is listening in a way that we're gonna know. Like the stats show like what country you're in. But shout out to our very faithful listeners in Germany.
Yep.
Always cool to see you. First people to download the podcast. I don't know if that's out of eagerness or because your day starts sooner.
I have a sneaking suspicion I probably know them. I don't know who they are.
Yeah,
I probably know them.
I assume it's probably through your connection there, but it's still cool. It's still cool to see you.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Just wanted you to know we notice you. But so there's 2 countries in competition with Germany for the most faithful listeners not in the U.S. So the first one is Canada. So welcome, Canada. I feel like we know some of you also, but it's still awesome. And then the third one, though, and I do not know you, is Thailand.
Yeah.
So I have made up. I do not want to hear from you. I made up a really interesting backstory full of mystery and international intrigue about who you are, what you're doing in Thailand.
And you don't want to hear because you don't want to shout out the story.
Exactly. It's so good that, it'd just be a letdown. But if it's a really good story, then we do want to hear from you. But if it's, I feel like we could guess.
Yeah.
Anyways, but Germany, Canada, Thailand, you are all neck and neck. So if you have like one friend each that you tell about it, one of you is certainly going to pull ahead. But it's just been awesome to see that, UK, New Zealand, Kenya.
Yeah, I hadn't looked at the list of countries in a while. There's a lot.
Yeah, there's at least 20 countries that it's recorded, which is just awesome.
Yeah, Australia, Brazil, Costa Rica, Czechia. Is that?
I didn't even know that was a country. I'm stuck in Czechoslovakia. When was that? When did that happen, Czechia?
Czechia is supposed to be the Czech Republic? I'm not sure. Maybe Czech Republic is too long.
What? I feel like there was a change, and I'm sorry, Czechia, because you're new. You're new both as a country and as a listener.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, it's just fun to see that. So that's a shout out to our international folk. Okay, and so my final shout out is to all you people listening on an iPhone or iTunes or some kind of an Apple device. If you just take one moment, because you're our favorite listeners other than everyone else, just take 1 minute and review us on your podcast app. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars, doesn't matter. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like.
Only 5 stars.
I'm not a 5-star. I don't give out 5 stars, so I don't expect 5 stars from you. If we're not giving you 5-star content, I want a 3.5. But they don't allow for 3.5, so you can round that up to 5 if you need to. But we really do welcome those comments. if you tell us what kind of listener would benefit from us, that helps us, but it's also going to help other people that are similar to you find the show, which would be awesome. And if you don't listen on Apple devices, if you have a friend who you think would enjoy an episode, tell them about it, pass it along. And of course, anyone, we welcome your comments. You can always email us at followingthefirepodcast@gmail.com, or go to the website with the awesome show notes and hit contact us. So far, we've gotten back to everyone who's written to us. Sometimes it takes us a while, but we have eventually responded to everyone. So we'll take a couple minutes. We'll wait for you. Go ahead, pause the episode, tell a friend or leave a review, send us an email, and we'll be right back here when you come back.
Think it's been long enough?
I don't think they did it. I don't think any of them did it. That's okay.
I don't have any specific shout outs. I'm just thankful for all the people who are listening and sending emails or contact through Facebook or Reddit, or all the different places that we are, Twitter, all those. It's just nice to have. It's encouraging to have that support. To the people listening to us, and I noticed from the stats, it looks like you get a lot of new listeners who start at the beginning and seem to want to be completionists. So
I get that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I've been doing that with the Holy Post podcast, and I'm like 4 years behind still. So anytime
they're
they
on
post...
episode 480 or something crazy, aren't they?
Oh no, not Holy Post. Sorry, I don't have that much. What do they mean? The Bible Project.
The Bible Project, okay.
Yeah. The Holy Post is too late, and it's topical, so.
Yeah.
And now that I'm in podcast mode, I keep finding great podcasts, and people recommend great podcasts to me.
Yep.
And books.
There's too many.
And so I keep buying more books, and I told myself I was going to stop when I ran out of shelf space for my new books, but.
No, you're not going to stop.
I've been reading this book, and in the middle of the book said, "Stop what you're doing and go order this other book."
What? Really?
I was like, even my books are. I can't my books are like. There's no place that is safe, Steve. Even my book, like I'm like just trying to get through the reading list, and the book's like, nope, you gotta listen more. So you got to read, you got to buy more books.
Wow.
So somebody's got to read them though. But it's been fun. So yeah, I definitely appreciate it's been nice connecting with people and sharing our story, but hearing other people's stories.
Yeah, it is. So I'm curious to hear your story, Nathan. Apparently you had an interesting Sunday.
Yeah, so I finally had the combination of courage and boredom to go out and seek a in real life church and start visiting congregations.
Wow,
it feels really scary. I haven't really ever been in this position.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely visited churches in college, but it was more of a intellectual exercise.
Mm. Well, and you had to rate them with their coffee and whatever.
And I rated them exactly. It was very cynical. So yeah, every other weekend I don't have my son, and my wife is in the middle of the mountain somewhere out of cell range most of the time right now. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to take my weekends when it's just me and just go visit some churches and see what I can find. And it's hard to know where to start. And there's a lot of churches.
Yeah, oh, my word.
I used to be kind of judgmental of the Bible Belt because I felt like they had a lot of churches, but I think that I just didn't know that just we all have a lot of churches.
Mm-hmm.
So I apologize to the people I judged in my mind in the Bible Belt.
Well, you can still judge them. There's still too many.
There's too many churches, guys. But
can we all just get along?
We had taken the quiz, which kind of that planted a seed in me for like, what am I looking for? And we've talked some about what our priorities are for looking at churches. So kind of put a pin in the map, but I decided to start. I don't know. It's an art, not a science. I just decided to start with Anglican, Episcopalian churches, because I know a little bit about them, and I felt like there's a lot of denominations I know a lot less about.
Okay.
And there's some intriguing things about, I read C.S. Lewis, N.T. Wright. Who else is Anglican? Dorothy Sayers. I can't remember who else that I've read that I kind of like their theology. So I looked up the map, and it turns out there's two of those churches in our town. And so I was like, how do you pick between two of the same kind of churches? And I don't really know how it works when there's like a church structure, and like maybe it's like where you live in your neighborhood. Maybe I'm supposed to go to one,
right,
not the other. But I looked them up, and I realized that their worship times are staggered, and that I would be able to visit both of them like really easily on the same day.
Really?
And
a Two-Fer.
And then I realized like that's the perfect church visiting strategy for churches that have either multiple services or that like, yeah, you just need a spreadsheet, you need a graph, church start times. You could probably get in 3 if you're an early morning person, but I skipped the early one. I'm not up for that. Like that's efficiency, and that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
But I was like, do you know what? Yeah, I'll give it a try. And I feel like that I was really curious too, because the two churches are actually really close to each other.
Really?
Like a couple of blocks away from each other.
Wow.
Which is,
it's odd.
That in itself, I had a lot of questions about that. Like, how does that happen? How do the two churches think about each other?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't they just one church? And I remember that our church has the same thing. We have there are 2 churches of Christ in town that are almost right next to each other. And I don't know. I went to one of them, and I know almost nothing about the other one. But it's like a block and a half away.
Really? I guess I didn't realize that.
Yeah, there's another one that's far away. There's at least 3 in town, Churches of Christ.
Really?
So that I kind of remembered that before I went, because I was like, they're not going to know. They probably don't know about the other one. They, just happened naturally.
So are there different brands of Anglican church, or?
Well, that's what
they don't call themselves Anglican, right?
Yeah, I just can't say Episcopalian because it's too many syllables. I know how to say Episcopalian, but I definitely am saying Episcopal wrong. Episcopal?
Episcopal?
It just sounds
wrong. I don't
wrong.
even know if that's a word. Is that a word?
I don't know.
Episcopal.
Episcopalian. Episcopal.
That's the word. Yeah, okay. You really threw me off with the Episcopal.
Yeah. That's why I say Anglican, because it's, again, I choose the easy one to pronounce.
Gotta put the emphasis on the right syllable.
Yeah. And it's funny that it changes. Okay, anyways, it changes names when it changes countries. So I showed up to the first one, and I was really nervous. And I did the thing where I like pulled up, and I was like, maybe I should just drive back home.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I dressed down quite a bit. I wore a t-shirt and jeans, and then walked up. And the first church held worship outside. And I went and it was a bring your own lawn chair. So I had a little lawn chair, sat down kind of near the back, and then like a couple minutes in, I realized every single person there knows that I'm the only new person there. And so then it was just like very obvious for several reasons. One, I was not dressed very well. Two, I was probably a couple of generations younger than everybody else there.
Really?
Yeah. And then after that, there was a couple of like, hey, anyone visiting, we're happy to have you. And I just got a kick out of that because that came up a couple of times, and I was like, I think that they're talking just to me.
And everybody knows that they're talking just to you.
Exactly, yeah. Like, including me. We all know. Yeah. But I appreciated that they didn't say, welcome to the guy in the gray shirt with the beard. We're glad to have you. So I would have turned bright red. But so you show up, and I realized that the Episcopal Church is perfect for people who are uncomfortable with church or who have never been before, because they hand you a little manual and you open it up and you're like, man, there's a lot of stuff here. And then someone starts talking and they're saying exactly what's on the page.
Really?
Yeah, the whole thing. So they started off, blessed be God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And then it's like, hey, everyone else here, you're supposed to say, and blessed be God's kingdom now and forever. Amen. So they had like a little lectionary, or I don't know what this is called actually.
It's called script.
Yeah, they had an order of worship. And so I was like, okay. So I listened along. They had songs. They had the music to the songs with the notes. And a lot of the songs had 4-part harmony.
Really?
For the notes. And then they just went through these, they had readings of scripture. They read from Jeremiah, from Ephesians, and from Mark. And then there was a sermon on Mark. We all read the Nicene Creed. I cried like 3 times throughout this at the prayers. I'm pretty sure I cried during the Nicene Creed, which is possibly a first ever in the history of the church. And then,
boy, this guy really is new.
Yeah. Completely different than what I'm used to. I was really uncomfortable. And then I went to the second church, and then they handed me like a much bigger document, and I opened it up, and the words were exactly the same. I was like, oh yeah, that's how it works.
Oh yeah, I forget that.
Yeah, and I should have known.
Same verses, same
reading,
section of the Bible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. Like, here's the part 1. We started with the same thing, and I was like, oh yeah. And then I was much better at the second one because I had just done it the first time.
Yeah. And
then there's a part in the middle where the pastor gave a sermon on, kind of a short sermon on what was happening, and there were some differences. The songs were different, but still, like, I think I'd been to an Anglican church in Paris when I lived there one time. The most uncomfortable, if you've ever been to a church like this, is when I'll prepare you in case you ever are in a high church, Steve.
Okay.
So the most scary part of high church is when they get to the part that says anything having to do with peace. Let me find it. It's scary.
Oh, sharing the peace?
Sharing in the peace is so...
I've heard of that. I heard that term. Is that like greet your neighbor?
It's greet your neighbor, but you have to know how to do it, and I didn't know how to do it.
Very specific way to greet your neighbor, huh?
Yeah. Oh, I can't find it now. Yeah, so the peace. So the celebrant, that's the person in the front, says, "The peace of the Lord be always with you." And then everyone says, "And also with you." And then you turn around to everyone and say, "Peace be to you." And you do your hands up, like you wave. And then I think you're supposed to say, "And also with you."
Okay.
But I just said peace to everyone. And in my generation, that was like a common, it would be like, peace out. Hey, peace, man. Peace.
Peace.
What's up? Peace.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. And I'm waving and saying, peace. which is what you're supposed to say when you leave if you're a millennial. You say peace,
Right.
and then you peace out.
Peace out.
So when you peace and stay, it's like saying goodbye, but then you don't go for a while. So it was awkward.
Did both places do that?
They both shared the peace. Yep. I was much better the second place. I shared a row with, it was like me and like 5 elderly ladies.
In the row?
In the row. And by the second time, I was a little bit more comfortable. And so I struck up conversation with them. And so when we shared the peace, it went way, way better the second time.
Oh.
Yeah. So I had been reading the night before. I just binge read Mark, the Gospel of Mark, and Mark is one of my least favorite ones. I like to read Luke and Matthew for some reason, but I kind of avoid Mark and John.
Really?
John's a little bit too touchy-feely, and Mark skips all the important details that I want to know. But I was reading Mark, and I was struck by this pattern of over and over and over Jesus, and then eventually the apostles, where they teach, and then they heal, and then they withdraw to rest.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never noticed that before. And it's like over, teach, heal, then Jesus withdrew, and then people find him wherever he is, and he's kind of tired, but he helps them, and then he heals, and then he withdraws again. And then eventually it kind of culminates, and the apostles go out, and they teach, and then they heal, and they come back, and Jesus says, okay, now the next step is you need to go rest, and you go take some time off. And I was like, I've never noticed that pattern before. So crazy. And I wrote it in the top like several times, like, man, what does this mean? And then I got to the first church and the gospel reading, because there's an Old Testament, and then there was an epistle reading, and then the gospel. The gospel was from Mark 6, and it was exactly that. It was the apostles coming back and Jesus saying, okay, now go and rest. And I started crying when we got to that, really? Quietly sobbing, because I was just like, oh, wow. I'm always wondering, like, what does it mean to have the Spirit? Do I have the Spirit? Is it the emperor's new clothes? Are we all kind of pretending? Right. Do I want it? Am I listening to my own thoughts? And I don't know the answer. Some days I'm fully convinced that I'm being led by the Spirit. Some days I'm fully convinced that I'm making it up. But I just thought it was so cool to read that passage, think about it, and then it comes up in the reading, and then both sermons, of course, were about that, and ended up being about the importance of, sometimes it's important to stop things and to know when to rest. So that was awesome. So I went back and listened to what I said my criteria were for looking for a church. Oh yeah. And I had said I'm looking for Orthodox Nicene Creed, and of course we all read it together, and I cried. I was looking for fruit. One of the things that I really loved, one of the things I was looking for that was a must-have, was humility as a collective humility, just as a body. Yeah. And the official readings had prayers in them that were just full of humility. Like, God, help us as a church. We know that we're blind. We know that we're weak. We don't even know the places we're blind and the places we're weak. So make us whole in you, and make us whole to see the people that we miss. And it was just so full of that collective humility, and the kind of the sermons had that same feeling. There was definitely an outward focus, like, hey, we're here for today, but a natural part of the gospel is for us to reach out and to go from here humbly, but to serve people. Mm-hmm. There were prayers for like essential workers, for people impacted by COVID. They prayed for other churches, and one of them shares a building with 2 other denominations, and so they prayed for the the people of both of those churches, that God is leading those churches as well.
Really?
Which just felt foreign to me.
Yeah.
But it was beautiful. Just
kind of refreshing.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I mean by the collective humility. Like, do you know what? It's not help them to be like us. Thank God that we are not like them.
Yeah.
It was, and in fact, the one that was sharing, this was so cool. So they got to the end and they had announcements and, we're going to have a food drive at this time. And they got through the announcements, and then she said, okay, our sister churches have a couple announcements for you as well. So they said, this church, they're looking for, snacks for their preschoolers. If anyone could help, we'd really appreciate it if you could sign up.
Really?
I was like, whoa. So they're a collective of churches that means they're sharing their kind of concerns to each other, and just so cool.
That's really neat. What it makes me think of, so you've driven from Colorado to Oklahoma several times and back.
Several times. Yep.
Along the way, I think it's in Kansas. There's lots of horizon, and way off on the side of the road, off of the road in like a little bitty town. I think there's a sign that says like Chapel of the Prairie, or
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Something like that. And I don't know if this is true. I mean, you may know more about it than me, but I think it was my dad was telling me about this, how they built this church building and in the town, and it's shared by a Catholic church and a Lutheran church. But they were so adamant about not, like, they hated each other. But they had one big building. And so the pews were, like a pew is like an L-shaped if you look at it from the side, a seat in the back. And so, like, Catholic was one direction, and they'd pivot the other direction to face the other direction for the Lutheran church, because they just couldn't get along.
Reversible pews.
They didn't even want to, like, look at the Catholic crucifix on the wall. They wanted to be behind them when they're doing their stuff.
Oh,
so
wow.
That may be completely made up story, but
I don't know if that's like creative. Let's lean on what we have in common and let's do what we can, or if it's like a sad story.
Yeah, well, even if it's not true, it's one of those things. It's like the fact that I believed that it was true is
sure
saying something.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have been to churches where there are multiple churches that meet there, but they do not intersect at all.
They just kind of, and the ships pass over the night.
Yeah, the Korean church and the Spanish language church or whatever it is that's kind of sharing the space. So that was cool, and I'm sure that happens, and that's not.
The three churches are sharing the same building?
Yeah, Catholic, Lutheran, and Episcopal.
Catholic, Lutheran, Episcopal, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think I have that right. And I have no idea what it looks like when they're actually in the building. I don't know enough about. Do Catholics?
Because you're outside. Yeah,
we were outside, but there didn't seem to be other people there, so they must either stagger their times or maybe even their days. I don't know. Do Catholics do Mass on Sunday morning?
I think Catholics do Mass every day. I mean, if you're like super devout.
Yeah.
But maybe Sunday afternoon or evening.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a morning requirement thing.
Oh, at one point, we all prayed collectively for our President Joe.
President Joe?
Yeah, first of all, I've never heard him called that. And I was like, what?
On a first name basis.
Yeah. It just felt weird. First of all, to be praying for a Democrat. But second, to be calling him Joe, and it was written down. So I was like, "Is he the president of the synod or the diocese?" No, I think they mean the big one. I think they mean the
really. Wow.
Yeah. So
well, good for them.
Good for them. Yeah, I can't remember. I guess I could look it up exactly what they said, and I'm sure they prayed for Don also. I don't think
him Don.
Yeah, Donald. I kind of like that. Do you know what? He's just a person.
Yeah. Kind of makes him feel more like a person.
So, some really cool stuff. The singing was hard. It was really high, and it was, that's going to be a thing to get used to. I was really curious about what involvement lay people have, because they definitely have a clergy, and they had vestments.
Mm-hmm.
There was a procession. That stuff all makes me a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But kind of it was easy to get over that, because by the time the sermon was happening, it was a very spirit-filled sermon.
Just more pomp and circumstance than you're used to.
Yeah, just probably different kinds of pomp and circumstance. But yeah, definitely just stuff that I'm not used to. But I also wondered, we'd spoken about like lay people involvement before, but honestly, I'm trying to think more about like, how does my church fit into my daily living out of my faith?
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if I actually can be involved on Sunday and I'm like doing something, if I feel like I've gotten credit for my Christian task for the week. And maybe it's okay that I come to the church to be filled up with good teaching and to meet with people and take communion. And then my work is not on Sunday morning. My work is the 6 other days. I'm like, do I really care if I'm teaching the lessons on Sunday, or is it kind of nice to have a professional? So the outward focus was really cool. The humble thing was really cool. Going through kind of so I'd said what I was looking for was orthodox. I wanted to see fruit of the Spirit. It was really hard to see. I didn't do a good job. I didn't stick around very long to talk to people. I kind of ran as soon as the service was over. So I think that one's going to be the hardest to find, is just, what are the people like? Are they being transformed by the Spirit? The clergy part of it, they were awesome, the people putting it on. But definitely the next thing I had said was, it can't have bitterness and squelchment. It's got to be open and loving. And it was, both churches were just so welcoming in that aspect. And I even, the pastor of one came up to me afterward. That's the one where I was like the clear visitor.
Yeah.
And she,
whoa.
Yeah. She asked me what I was doing, and I kind of just like word vomited. Oh, I'm looking for, been along in Church of Christ, and I grew up kind of like that. And she was like, yeah, I grew up evangelical also. She was like, I took 7 years off of church after that. And then we talked about deconstruction, and she was like, man, you got to connect with people on the internet talking about deconstruction. She was like, have you heard of Nadia Bolz-Weber?
Really?
And she was like, she grew up Church of Christ. I was like, yeah, I know. And she was like, what about Sarah Bessey? You should totally listen to Sarah Bessey. And she was just not afraid at all of the questions, or the like, yeah, that's what you're going through. Then yeah, so are a lot of us.
That's refreshing too.
And like, how beautiful that they get to deconstruct and keep going to church. Isn't that awesome? Right. Like, yeah, that's some of us. You're welcome here. And I'm sure it's kind of like going to a car lot and you're like, the car salesmen are so nice to me.
Yeah. They're on their best behavior.
And if I give a hint to like what I'm looking for or to where I am, sure, it makes sense.
Right.
But it was just refreshing. And I kind of looked through my list of, you know what? Yeah, I'm not looking for a church to do everything to be my entire Christian expression for the week. Definitely hard to visit churches during COVID, because both churches had remote services going on at the same time.
Oh yeah.
And so they're pretty sparse. You have no idea who's listening from home.
Right.
And the older people tended to come into the building, so who knows if that's just because of a technology adoption thing or what.
Yeah, there are a couple places that we wanted to visit that don't have services in person at all yet.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, still to this point.
Yeah, and one of the service was inside, fully masked, and then you had to show your vaccination card to either be in the close to people section, or if you didn't show your vaccination card, you got to be not close to people. So that's an obvious choice.
Oh, interesting.
The other one was outside, but no mask. Just weird. Definitely a weird time to visit a church.
Yeah, and we're also we're trying to figure out: do we want to visit a church? Do we want to start visiting churches when we're still having to do weird stuff?
Yeah.
Or do we want to wait until it's more normal? But then I kind of wonder if it's just, are we looking for an excuse not to go visit a church that's going to feel weird?
Yeah, I mean,
which I think honestly is maybe part of it.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking for excuses.
We know that anywhere we go, it's gonna feel weird, no matter what.
But even the night before, I was like, I'm gonna try to convince myself not to go in the morning. I know that I'm gonna wake up and have a good reason not to go, and I don't know what I'm gonna do in the next upcoming Sundays. I think part of that is okay, and I think part of the rest and knowing when it's okay to rest, I think that applies to this stuff too.
Yeah.
I listened to 2 sermons on this, so now I'm an expert. Knowing when to stop, or even knowing when to pause or slow down and not accelerate, is a thing that I haven't seen in churches before.
Yeah.
My business where I work, we always look at year-over-year revenue. We're always looking at what did we do last year, and we all assume that what we need to do this year is more than that.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's how church should work. I don't think church is supposed to be, how many people did we have last year, because next year we need to have more. Or how much money did we give, because next year we need to give more. That's how capitalism works. But there's times for churches to say, do you know what, maybe we should stop this program. Or do you know what, maybe it's time to take a break from this, whatever it is, for a few weeks. And I think there's a lot of deconstructing or just kind of Christians that are taking a Sabbath right now from church. I think that's okay.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, I think it's been, as we've discussed, it's been weird, but it's been refreshing, and I keep using that word refreshing, but I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, being as busy and as involved as we were in church, it got to the point where it almost felt like a job. And when you get too deep into that, and we were too involved, it just, I mean, it does start feeling like a job, and like you just have to do this or that. And having that time off has been nice to kind of rethink about what's really going on and why are we doing this. So I definitely want to get back. I mean, I think I'm missing the community aspects of church, and my kids are starting to miss community aspects of church. But well, I'm glad you got to go to those 2 places. You think you'll go back there, or are you just kind of like wanting to hit a few places? And you said I know you don't know what you're gonna do next week, but
yeah,
do you have a strategy? Do you have like pins on a map and red string between them and things like that?
No, I'm a little bit I'm a little bit concerned because of that time I did it in college where I visited so many churches. The more I visit, the more I feel like I am going to have my arms crossed, and I'm going to be critiquing what they're doing and who's the best one and that kind of thing. And that's not the stance that I'm looking for. And these 2 hit my must-have, other than fruit of the Spirit, looking for that, just because I haven't met people yet.
It's hard to tell.
So I think I'm kind of thinking of it as I have more flexibility than you, because I'm probably going to only go on weekends that I don't have Malachi.
Yeah. And
kind of ease into it and see if I can meet people. And I feel like this is an interim plan before my wife gets back, because I would like to look for churches with her.
Sure.
Not like find one and then say, here's where we're going. So I think I don't know, I might just keep going to both of them. So the second one thinks I'm really good at it. Like, man, you have this memorized. Like, yeah. And we'll see. Again, There's churches online still. I've been using Sunday also for just like podcast meditation time. So we'll see. But it was really good to be with other Christians and know they're out there. And I do feel like you mentioned it's going to be weird no matter what. It's kind of like, I feel like it's worth diving into that weirdness a few times just to get used to the weirdness.
Yeah, you're right.
Because if you wait too long, or if it's really far in between, like trying one kind and another, it's going to be kind of overwhelming. And I've visited, Catholic churches before, or Anglican, or other churches before, high church before. So that was helpful to have a little bit of a framework. But I feel like if you didn't have that at all, then start with Episcopal, because they give you the manual. No surprises.
Church manual. That's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. Again, and it helped me remember that people from the church that I left, they're meeting and they're part of the body that I belong to. And these people have been meeting in my hometown for the 30 years I've been alive, or 35. And they belong to the body also. And I didn't know about them. And now I know about them.
Mm-hmm. Kind of nice. I'm glad you got to do that.
Yeah, it's definitely been a weird wilderness wandering time. And I always want to skip to the end. I just want to be comfortable again and in a church where I know how it all works, and where I know how I fit in. But I think that's asking to win the lottery, and God just gives us daily bread. So trying to enjoy this part of the process and not be too discontent that I'm here, because I think there's plenty of work being done in the church and in me right now where we are. So
I need to keep reminding myself that this is a process. Enjoy the process, learn from it, because every stage of things is going to be it's going to work a different part of your brain and your heart.
And I tried not to notice all the things they were doing wrong. There's so many things.
See, I was going to ask you, is the things that like really bugged you, but I don't want to get all negative.
Just always, there always will be, and I don't know how to get rid of it. So I went in knowing that I'm gonna be critical of everything, and that I'm wrong about most of those things.
As long as you know you're wrong, does that make you more right if you know that you're wrong?
I don't know.
Go through wrong and come out the other side.
It should work. The first step is supposed to be admitting you have a problem, but I feel like I'm immune to the first step. Like, yep, I've got a problem. Still do it. Doesn't stop me. Doesn't even slow me down. Yeah, there's tons of things that bugged me, but none of them were important. So I'd rather be bugged by the things that only matter to me than miss the great things, the bigger things.
Sounds kind of like freedom,
Yeah.
Not having to sit there and super overanalyze everything, because a lot of the things that maybe all the minors we used to major in are not as majors we thought. So it's kind of, you don't have to worry as much, I guess. I don't know.
No, you're totally.
Makes sense?
It makes so much sense. It's this prison that I built for myself to be right and to notice the wrong all the time. And now I noticed God. I noticed the Spirit, and I definitely noticed things that bugged me, but I quickly let them go, and it's like a burden being lifted off my shoulders. And I know that I'm the one there that I need them. That's why I showed up. They've all got each other, and I'm coming because I want their help as a body to grow closer to God. So who am I to, I could show up and say, like, now I know that it's printed as a C, but you do need to drop it a third. I'll work up to that. Because it was a problem.
Well, and you're not exactly a soprano.
Yeah, it's I could not. I was singing the bass, and it was the low alto. It's okay. It's all right. It's all right. They don't know. They don't know any better.
It's part of the process.
It's part of the process. Yeah, I literally thought I was like, do you know what? I'm full of the leaven of Nathan. I'm full of the leaven of the Pharisee. And I do not want to infect this congregation or any congregation I go to with that. I'm going to keep it to myself and recognize when I'm doing that. And yeah, it really makes a difference.
Just wait till they trust you, then you can pull out the big stuff.
Yeah. I have a list that I've been keeping. So we'll see. The adventure continues. I'd love to hear if anyone has tried visiting a church or what online church has been like. Let us know.
I think one of the first churches we're going to check out is a United Church of Christ.
You went full liberal crazy.
I know, but it's a bit high churchish from what it looks like.
Yeah, I know nothing about it. I know nothing about the United Church.
I know nothing about it either. Basically, I've seen some of the videos online, but so we'll see if we survive. But hopefully, I'll be able to report back soon as well.
I can't wait to hear about that. I'd be interested if you feel like an imposter. I kind of felt like I was sneaking in. Yeah, I can't wait to hear about it.
I'll definitely let you know for sure.
And then I'll Google what UCC is. I'm just used to saying, oh, I know it says Church of Christ, but the U makes a big difference.
Right. They just stole that from Romans 16:16. Right?
United's not in there anywhere, Steve.
Right.
I had been screaming.
Well, have a good weekend, man.
Yeah, you too.
These messages I thought you wanted to hear, but it only takes a whisper.
Hey, thanks for listening to Following the Fire. If you'd like to see show notes for this episode, which includes links to everything we mentioned as well as all the scriptures, head on over to followingthefire.com and just click on this episode. There's also contact information on the website. Let us know what you think about the show and if you have any suggestions for future topics. Also, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts if you could. It really helps other folks find the show. And as always, thanks to the fabulous Daniel Wheat for the theme song and the music for the episode. You can find more of his stuff on Apple Music and Spotify. See you later.